Welcome to Ask Logic, the video series where we're answering your questions. I'm Todd Smith and I'll be your host. Throughout this video series, we're going to cover things that we're experts in. So SEO, web design, web development, PPC, social media, photography, and videography. That's why we wanted to start Ask Lifted Logic, to help serve out content to people who aren't just our clients. Because the more you guys know, the better decisions you can make. Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Ask Lifted Logic, where we'll be focusing on Google Ads. With me today, I have certified PPC expert, Google Ads specialist, all things digital marketing, Courtney.
Oh, you flatter me.
You know, you make it easy to flatter.
Oh.
You just keep being badass at what you do, and I just keep speaking truths, and all of a sudden, this is where we're at. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about Google Ads. I think at a really high level, the first question is, what the hell are Google Ads?
Google Ads. So almost everyone's heard of it. You've definitely seen them. Whether or not you've clicked on them, that's up to you. But Google Ads is what it sounds like. It's Google's ad platform.
Is it different than the Google Ad Network?
No. So the Google Ad...
Oh, layers within layers.
Your Google Ads
run
on the Google Ad Network. So Google Ad Network spans.
So would the Google Ad Network be like umbrella with other things underneath it, like Google Ads, remarketing, display, all that kind of stuff? Like it's like the high-level platform that enables all the things, or?
Those are more the ad types you can run. So the Google Ad Network is where the ads run. So obviously that's on Google search results pages, but also other Google products like YouTube. You can also run essentially websites that run display ads. So, you know, all of those ads you see in the corner with the little white ad thing, disclaimer in the corner on websites, especially on news websites or things like that.
Really popular on blogs.
Yeah. So those are actually people who essentially leave a box open on their website in different Google ad sizes. And they say, Google, you can make this part of your display network. So also in apps, a lot of mobile apps for both Google Play and iPhone, they have those ads that you see between games or, you know, to get something in your game. A lot of those are run on Google as well. So it's just where your ad's seen. It could be virtually anywhere if you're running a display campaign. Also, like the little, you know, the two ads you see in Gmail? Above,
at
like
the top, yeah.
So that's a Google ad type. It's part of the network. You can advertise there.
Interesting.
You could advertise in Google Maps.
That's the tricky one that not people know. People need to learn about.
Yeah. And you can set, you know, within your campaign, you can set what parts of the Google Ad Network you want to run your ad to. So if you very specifically only want it on certain things, I typically recommend kind of pulling out of the app game, just because. I mean, if you use your apps the way I do, ads are like the bane of your existence. So you like put your phone down until it's over, or you like wait till you can hit the X.
There's like almost like a stigma associated with like interrupting someone's game.
Yeah.
If you're just like casual over here on the browsing side, like, hey, I see you, cool. Yeah. If you're interrupting my Clash of Clans, do people still play? I don't play a lot of phone games.
I don't know.
Sure you don't, Courtney. Whatever. I don't.
I don't know if people play. I've never played that game.
What's your go-to phone game?
Trivia Crack.
Oh, there's a Trivia Crack 2 now. Do you know that?
Yeah, that's what I play.
Is
it's
it good?
Actually a lot better.
Okay. I have it on my tablet. I haven't
the first.
I haven't officially started it.
Yeah, it's fun.
I've been really into Catan lately.
Of course you have.
Guys, I'm really good. I started a guild. It's a whole thing. What type of businesses should be utilizing Google Ads in the Google Ad Network?
Anyone and everyone, but especially e-commerce retailers.
Probably companies that have a little more like disposable income.
Yeah. You obviously have to pay for every ad that appears across this network for the click or the impression or whatever you're paying for. So whatever it is, if it's on a Google ad, you're paying for it. And
just even taking a step back further, you mentioned clicks and impressions. Click is when like a user actually engages on the ad and clicks to wherever you want to take them. An impression is just showing the ad.
Yep, it's a view.
Do you ever pay for both?
You usually pick one bid strategy versus another. You know, if you're all about conversions, you might do a maximize conversions campaign in which Google serves your ads to the people most likely to convert. If you want to do an impression share, you give Google a percentage of impression share you want versus anyone else who's competing, and it will show your ad based on that.
Nice.
And they count, I mean, they don't necessarily count it as like eyes on the ad. They count it as the ad was displayed on the page. So someone had the opportunity to view it. Whether or not they actually did is sometimes not known, but that's how it works. And they can still click on it, obviously, and that you'll pay. But it's just a little bit different.
What's the difference between Google Ads and Google Ad Express?
So Google Ads Express is a product that Google Ads came out with for kind of the average business owner. It kind of bridges the gap between having like a lot of technical knowledge for Google Ads. So you could still run Google Ads on your own without having to hire someone in-house who's already, you know, trained and has experience and everything. You could start your own kind of basic campaigns.
Do you think is it well done? Or do you think in general it sometimes does more harm than good?
It's pretty straightforward as far as like setting up your ad. It kind of holds your hand through a lot of that process. It skips some of the more intimidating parts of Google Ads. But I think in the long run, I think it's more expensive as an option.
Because you're not negating things.
Yeah, and you're just paying for kind of that like you don't know what you don't know. So Google Ads Express is certainly a lot easier to understand. So, you know, if that's what you're going for, then it's certainly like something useful, and it gets your ad out there. You're just not going to be able to do as much with it, and you're not going to be able to like conserve your budget as much.
Do you think it's better for most businesses? Because it sounds like it might be a little more expensive up front to just pay a company to set it up right and then like potentially manage it yourself versus doing the Google Ad Express route where you are doing it yourself, but you're not really limiting your spend very well?
If you want to run Google Ads yourself, I would highly recommend having someone set it up for you in regular Google Ads. And then there's some pretty basic training out there on Google Ads. You can go everything from like the top level, just like how to manage your account and make basic changes, to like really, really in-depth stuff. But you would be able to use those resources then once you have the foundation to kind of work from. If you need to create a new campaign, you can like certainly go off the settings of one that was created for you, so you know exactly how to set things up. But I would say if your budget, if you want to spend less than $1,500 or even less than $1,000 a month in Google Ads Express is probably okay for you. Because I wouldn't take less than that to a manager, because I don't think they're going to be able to just like get you what you're hoping for.
Cool. I mean, that makes sense. How important is Google Ads and even the Google Ad Network to driving traffic to a website or a blog?
So a lot of the times we recommend for our clients, since we also are like a full service web design company, kind of first and foremost, when a client comes in and they have really high organic rankings, and, you know, once you redo a website, we do it obviously to be better than the one before, but for a few months, your results are going to be, you're going to drop in ranking.
Yeah, so just taking a step back on that, when you launch a new site, very often the content changes, the URL structure might change. So Google has to go through and re-index every single page, which long-term, how we build the sites makes a positive impact on the ranking. But for the first 3 to 6 weeks, it can either stay the same or drop a little bit. And so I think what Courtney's getting at is when you make that switch or pivot to the new site, you can supplement the potential loss of organic rank for a short time with ads.
Yeah, if you know, you were top 3 for a key phrase that's like your bread and butter, and your organic, you know, result for that was converting like crazy, I would tell you to let's run an ad until you get back up there, because you wouldn't want, it's a good Band-Aid, you know, it kind of will get you through that time where your ads, your rank's going to drop. You may see a drop in leads. So it's a good way to keep yourself kind of relevant and at the front of the page.
And a question we get a lot is, how often should I expect to be running Google Ads?
That's really up to you. We have some clients who run, I have like a winter, spring, fall, summer campaign that I switch between throughout the year, depending. They're a lawn company, Aspen Lawn.
Shout out. One of our oldest clients.
Yeah.
It's like
I was like their OG project
I think
manager.
it's like 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So we obviously for them, there's different things, your lawn or, they do pest control as well. So there's different bugs. There's, mosquitoes in the summer.
So they're running it year round, but they're like pivoting their campaigns based on like season or product or pest almost.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're someone who works on like digging ditches and, like the type like
More seasonal work.
Then you would want to run your ads, starting a few weeks out when you want to start booking people. And when the season's kind of over, you're going to want to probably stop them.
We have a lot of clients who they take a year budget, and then we help them figure out, does it make sense to be running them 12 months a year or 2, right? So we have some clients who they do like foundation basement repair stuff. And so in spring, when it rains a lot, that's like their busiest season. So they're not necessarily trying to run ads in summer when it's dry. So they save that money and put it to the ads in spring. I think like even the shorter answer of that is you should run ads as long as it's making you money.
Yeah.
Right. The goal of Business 101 is make money. So if you're putting $5,000 into ads and making 10 or 15, you should keep doing it. If you're putting 5,000 and making 5,000 or less, probably should stop or rethink where you're putting the money or how, or the type of ad you're doing, or like how the campaign is set up or stuff like that. Another question we get, and I've actually dealt with this personally, is if you're getting ready to set up a Google account yourself, and you're just gonna like handle it yourself and not like outsource to a agency, what are a few things that you wish you had known ahead of time before you set up your first campaign?
Ooh.
Yeah. Let's save everyone a little time and a lot of stress.
So a big mistake I usually see is how people they don't tend to understand the nuances of Google Ads and how your rank and your quality score and different things would affect your budget.
We'll get into all those, like what those specifically are here in a bit.
Yeah, and keyword match types as well. So they tend to do the broadest match type. So say, for example, you're selling, what's a good example here? You're selling sneakers.
Some Allbirds.
You're selling sneakers. And
it's like walking on clouds, Courtney. Walking on clouds.
For them, they may think it's relevant to show up when someone searches shoes. So they're going to put literally shoes in broad terms, which means that could be paired with anything. It's any search that mentions shoes.
So it could say like shitty shoes, ugly shoes, dumb shoes,
or
uncomfortable shoes, unfashionable shoes.
For the beach. Sneakers are not your shoes for the beach. Just things like that where you're not thinking about what's actually relevant for the person you're searching for. So a lot of the times you end up spending a lot of money, whether that's individually per click or just like total volume, because shoes is a big search, and you're not getting anyone to the site. Maybe 2 out of 100 are actually looking for the sneakers you're selling. So the more like targeted you can be on Google, the better. But unfortunately, not a lot of people understand that.
At least, especially when they are first starting out.
Yeah, and they don't understand the difference between a campaign and an ad group.
What is the difference?
So a campaign is going to be like an overarching subject. So for Lifted Logic, for example, we have a campaign called Web Design.
Okay.
And within that, we have different ad groups. So we have one that's called Web Design, and it runs ads for people searching web design. And we have another one called Website Designer. So that's going to be ads that are more for someone looking for like a person versus like a general website design. And then we have like different variations of that that's still ultimately relevant to find someone who's looking for web design. But you need to structure it out very like, it's almost annoying to do. So like people don't do it, but it
saves you money.
You have to do it. Yeah. Because it gives you the most control over your account and your money.
And kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier on like Google Ads versus Ad Express, this is like really one of the biggest differences.
Yeah.
When you like hire a company or like someone who does this all the time, they're going to know this kind of stuff and save you the money up front. You might spend the money to hire them, but you're saving the money on the ads. Versus if you don't know this kind of stuff or aren't thinking this way, you're going to spend the money to Google and not catch it until month 2 or 3 or 4, or even if you catch it at all.
And even more people, they'll set up one campaign and one ad group, and it'll be every single keyword they want to buy for, all in one. And
that doesn't sound like a great idea.
Nope. And then you have, then they don't know that you need to have 2 expanded ads and 1 responsive ad per ad group. But if you even serve up that, if you're serving an ad, if I have a keyword group that's web design, web development, corporate photography, and copywriting, what ad do I even show? Like, what do I give them?
Badass digital agency.
I guess, but that would be its own account. Like, that would be its own ad group, digital agency. So it's just those types of things, and refining what Google has to give to your potential clients and clickers and customers, so that they're finding what's relevant and your ad is actually like making you money, versus like just getting people to click and then click away right away that you're still paying for.
You mentioned keywords.
Yeah.
What exactly is that? Is that the same as like a search term, like in organic?
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, it's, your search phrases, your keywords are going to be what's relevant to your business. If you're McCown Gordon Construction, another shout out.
Love them.
So they're going to want to get, the difference between finding even construction company versus commercial construction company for them.
Completely different.
Totally different. And yes, we were going back and forth on buying the keyword construction company. And my argument was like, even though it's searched significantly less, you're going to be relevant for every commercial construction job that someone could search for, versus like construction company, that could be someone looking to build houses, which they certainly don't do.
Yeah.
Or, construction on like someone just wants a remodel or whatever it is. I would argue that we would have to be a lot more strategic with our negative keywords in that campaign for just construction company, so that we're still kind of getting people who are more likely to be looking for their type of construction.
You just mentioned negative keywords. What does that mean?
So negative keywords are just as important as your keywords. If you want a little example, like I know it was 6 years ago, Adam came to me and another person at the company who was doing ads and said, like, we have to show up every time someone searches web design in Kansas City.
That feels like an Adam thing.
Yeah, every time. I want us to be there at the top. And we were like, okay, but like, what about like...
I don't think you thought this through, but we'll do it.
Yeah. And so, then you show him, like, when you Google worst web design in Kansas City.
DIY, shitty.
Yeah, like it's all going to show up. So there's certain standard keywords that are out there. Neil Patel does a good job of kind of giving you those. So it's always going to be things like cheap, DIY, eBay, Craigslist.
Things you don't want to show up for.
Yeah, porn I think is even one of them. Like just staying away from that realm of the internet to make sure that you're spending your budget wisely. But then that's not where it ends for you. That's going to be your like ones you start a campaign with. And sometimes we also know ones to start a campaign with. For example, like for McCown Gordon, we're going to want to negate. We're going to want to negate the keywords that have something to do with where to get a job in commercial construction, or, unless we were running like a recruitment campaign. But for looking for their clients, they're not going to want people who are looking for jobs. They don't want people who are looking for schools or like ongoing education. They don't want someone who's looking for...
And whenever you have a campaign where you start to negatize things that are still applicable to your business, like careers is a really good example, that's when you know it's time to have a separate campaign. Right. So you can still run it. You can have a careers campaign and drop them on the careers page, and then you can have your commercial construction campaign and drop them on the commercial construction page. So it's not saying you can't run ads for those negatized words. You just don't want them in that campaign.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to start separating out when you have campaigns that are kind of similar. Or, for example, we have a client who's a surrogacy agency. So they're both looking for women who want to become surrogates, and they're looking for parents who want to find a surrogate. So both of those people might search the words surrogacy agency. But it's about, getting into the negative keywords to make sure that they're not searching to kind of fine-tune whether that goes to an intended parent or whether that goes to a potential surrogate.
Negatizing your keywords is really important for kind of like the two main things I always think about is it saves you money, right? Like you're going to stop showing up and potentially risk people clicking on an ad that's not relevant if you negatize your words. And the second thing is it makes your ads more efficient. And so anytime like an ad campaign or an ad is efficient, you have a higher quality score, you have a higher conversion rate, and it's just better for your business and your marketing.
Yeah. And then one thing I will say also to add about that is, anticipating questions like, well, how do I even know what to negatize? Within AdWords, you have a sweet little option called search terms. And it shows you every single search term within your given time period.
If something makes you, if one of those
triggered your ad,
and if one of those makes you raise your eyebrows, it's probably something you should negate.
Oh yeah. If it has nothing to do with you, if it kind of makes you laugh,
laugh in a painful way because it might just cost you.
Another client is like one that does like prosthetic legs, arms. Hope Casey, shout out.
Oh, love Mike.
So we started around Halloween time. I started seeing like Pennywise face prosthetics, like a forehead for like the Pennywise clown from It.
Yeah.
And like different like Halloween prosthetics and things like that where it's like, oh, we gotta, or like someone was looking for prosthetic legs for dogs, which like, oh, but like not relevant. So like I have to get in there quite often, maybe once a month, and do what I call like a negative keyword audit. And I get through all their search terms and just
negate whatever
you can click, the little box next to it, and then you have a nice little button that says add as negative keywords.
Cool. So we've talked about like what keywords are, and we've talked about negatizing them. How do you actually find the right ones?
So to find your keywords, it's kind of a combination of a lot of things. First and foremost, your business best. So the first thing we'll do when we're kind of starting to create a campaign, an account structure, is talk to the client and say, let's look at a calendar year. Is what you sell is it seasonal, or is it your product services? Are they seasonal, or is it more like an all year round need? And that's where we start breaking out like when we run campaigns, or, whether we call certain campaigns your winter, your fall, your summer, versus like just general campaigns for, I'll use DH Pace as an example. So overhead door guy, it's like, we always are going to run garage door repair versus like a lawn company, Aspen, they only want to run sprinkler startup in the spring, and they only want to run sprinkler like winterization in the fall. So, kind of determining that, and then determining what you want to advertise for, whether it's your own name, whether it's specific services, if it's products, we just kind of flush all that out. And then as we sort them out by categories. So that'll be your campaigns. And then within that, we'll figure out the different ad groups, kind of based on the business owner's thoughts on keywords. And then we have a couple, good resources for keyword search tools. And some of those are organic ones like Moz. I use a browser extension called Keywords Everywhere. It's pretty cheap. You pay like $10 for like 1 million search queries.
That's a lot of search queries.
On Google. Yeah, we're almost out. We need to actually reload it. But what was the first time we loaded it?
Yeah,
like
a couple years ago.
8 months, 10 months ago.
Yeah.
So they actually do a nice thing where they pull from Google Ads' keyword research planner, which is like another good thing to use. I typically don't use that as much for finding keywords as much as I use it for like finding potential costs. But so you can type it in any search on Google, and it shows you right underneath the search box, what the average cost per click is, how many searches that gets per month. And it also shows you at the side some similar keywords people search. And I like that a lot for just kind of figuring out what people are even searching, and getting an idea of, trends and forecasting and thinking about, because, your largest search volume is not always necessarily what you want to go for. Especially on Google Ads, when you're doing search ads, it's kind of like you want to be pretty narrow because you know that if someone searches that, you are the most relevant. So, it could be a longer key phrase, but like when people search that, you're number one. And if they're not searching it, you're not paying for anything. So
no harm, no foul.
Yeah, you're not losing anything.
One thing that I heard you mention a little bit ago was buying for your name.
Yeah.
Is that common? Is that a good idea? I guess taking a step back, what is that?
So buying for your name is what we call like a branded search. Sometimes it's unnecessary. Like if I'm Macy's, and I buy for the word Macy's, there's no reason to do that unless JCPenney started buying ads for Macy's.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when you're going to want to think about it. But if you don't have anyone buying for your name,
then you don't need to.
Then you certainly don't need to, because you're the first result on Google anyway. And if you're not the first result on Google for your own name,
congratulations. That means you're doing really well if people are buying for your name.
You have some other issues.
Yeah.
Like you need to, if you're not organically first for your name, you need to come talk to us about
how to be
about that, because you have some schema issues or something. Mm-hmm. That's like something that is just a granted. Now for, do
you think it's do you think if you hire an agency and no one else is buying for your name and they're buying for your name, is that a warning sign?
I would ask them, what's the strategy behind this? Is there a reason behind this?
A lot of agencies will do it to make the numbers look better, right? Because if I'm buying for Lifted Logic and everyone that searches Lifted Logic looks on that ad, like I'm going to convert 100% of them because they're literally searching for Lifted Logic, which kind of defeats the purpose of AdWords.
However, there are some reasons why you might want to run a branded campaign. If your competitor is buying for you, obviously, like we talked about, that's going to be a pretty good reason. If you have a name that's commonly mispronounced, misspelled, that's going to be good for you too. If you run a lot of radio ads, so think about Dury Vision, who hasn't heard their ads on the radio. They do a lot of radio advertising. And someone may not know how to spell.
They even have Hulu ads now. Courtney's doing a great job. Yeah.
Not me, Courtney.
No, Dury Courtney, one of our favorite clients.
So you might not know how to spell Dury. You might spell it D-U-R-R-Y. You might mishear it and think it's Dr. Drury. All of those things. So we run a campaign for Dr. Dury himself, and then we also run one for Dury Vision. And we have a few common misspellings in there. The Kansas City LASIK market is kind of like a bloodbath.
Yeah.
So they're all buying for each other's names.
Yep.
So Discover Vision Center, Sabates, everyone's buying for each other. So you kind of are forced to buy for your own name if you want to compete. Another good reason could be, so Google has, if you're a nonprofit business and you don't know about this, Google has a grant program that you can spend, I think it's $10,000 a month, isn't it?
It is. So
$10,000 a month. But in order to keep qualifying for that every month, you have to meet a certain click-through rate. So knowing that branded campaigns have very high click-through rates, because, if I'm searching for Macy's and a Macy's ad pops up, I'm probably just going to click the ad instead of scrolling down to click on the homepage, because it's just right there. It's easier. So that can certainly help you take advantage of that situation and kind of raise your overall account click-through rate so that you can keep qualifying for that grant money while still running your other campaigns that are obviously just as relevant for your business. But, if you're a super specific nonprofit, you may not see as many searches or clicks. So name is a really good way to get a high click-through rate.
I didn't even think of that. So that's a really good point. Earlier you mentioned quality score. What is quality score?
So that's the crux of Google and saving your money and spending it as smartly as possible. Google there's a couple different quality score types within a Google account. The only one that Google will shows you to your face is your keyword quality score.
Okay.
So essentially, the cost per click on any given keyword for you or for an ad is determined by click-through rate, or no. The cost per click is determined by the ad. I'm sorry. Let me redo that. Okay.
Do you need me to look it up or you got it?
No, I'm good. The cost per click is determined by ad rank time. It's the ad rank equals.
Shake it out. We ain't in a hurry.
Okay.
You want me to re-ask the quality score question and start over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Play that keyboard.
Play that funky keyboard, white boy.
It's like your guitar.
It's like your guitar. Guitar. Earlier you mentioned quality score. What is that?
So your quality score is kind of the crux of your whole ad account and how well it performs, and how much money you're actually able to like save and spend just kind of smarter throughout. So Google, there's a lot of different quality scores on Google. Google only shows you one, however. That's your keyword quality score.
Feels like a very Google thing to do.
Yeah. They're pretty tight-lipped on the whole thing, and even like how they determine it. But the general rule is that where your ad is found on a page, your ad rank, whether that's the top 3 ads or the 4 now, whether you show up in a map, like an ad in the maps, and then like, the bottom ads as well, is kind of a determination of your bid. So your budget, that does matter. And then multiplied by your quality score. So let's say you have 2 plumbers who are both buying keywords for plumber in Kansas City. One of them could be willing to pay up to $10 a click, and one's only willing to pay $5 a click. But the one who's willing to pay $5 a click has a really good website. They bought super relevant keywords. Their landing pages have those keywords found on them. Their ad and their URL have those keywords found on them. That's going to be a really positive user experience. Google infers. Like, they can't look at your website. They don't have eyes, so they can't see what it looks like. But they can tell what's on the page through the code. So they're going to look at your landing page at the destination URL and say, is this a good landing page experience? And Google will show you that too. You can add that column when you're looking in keywords. You can see landing page experience and expected click-through rate. So that you'll get a rank of like above average, average, and below average. And that can kind of be where you first start looking when people come to us and say, our costs are going up, or, we've noticed like an increase in cost per click, or our competitor is really taking us over. One of the first places I would look is say, like, let's see what's going on with your quality scores.
Quality score, another reason to have a great website.
Yeah, and there's a whole article I wrote on this on our blog, so liftedlogic.com/blog. You can find one about quality scores, where I really it's broken down by each type.
And there's a really cool image that kind of shows you the lower your quality score, the more percentage you usually pay. And eventually, if your quality score is bad enough, Google will just stop showing your ad.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you're trying to avoid.
So a good, the reason I see low quality scores is usually it's a site we didn't build, and it doesn't have a lot of UX, UI focus. So it's just, it doesn't get a high click-through rate. People leave.
Another big thing that people do without really realizing is they'll buy a very specific term. So maybe it's web design in Kansas City, which should take them to a page about web design, but instead they always take them to a homepage or to a page that's not as relevant. And that's where you'll hear people talk about landing pages. And we talked about this in our PPC Ask Lift Logic episode, where a lot of people who have to put up landing pages consistently are doing it because their website, in my opinion, this is my hot take for this episode, just repeating it, wasn't built properly. If something's a core pillar of your business important enough to run ads to, then it's probably important enough to be on your site from the time of launch. And so for us, even in the beginnings of the website, when we're rebuilding websites for clients, we're trying to think and structure, all right, if we ever run ads, is this a good landing page? Is this a good drop-off point for PPC? Whether it's social or Google Ads or remarketing or display or any of that stuff, once they're on that page, that should be an experience into itself. And the more you take that seriously, the better your quality score is going to be. And
if you think about it from Google's perspective, it makes a lot of sense. They want to show highly relevant ads for what people are searching.
Otherwise, people will stop clicking on them and people will stop paying them.
And we had a client who spends $20,000 a month in ads, and we hadn't done the website. And they kept wondering, why are costs going up? And why are we not seeing, why is our cost per conversion raising and all of those things? And I sat them down and showed them their landing pages on their website. And I'm like, why would someone buy this from you? This landing page isn't even relevant. It doesn't mention this. What's the incentive there? And, if you're spending $20,000 a month in ads, my argument is cut that budget in half for a few months and redo your website.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you may find that $10,000 then is all you need to get the same amount of leads. But when you have a really good website and you're able to, they couldn't dynamically change the pages. So I'm like, well, if we could add a couple of these words onto the page,
it would help.
At least it would help the ad be shown more and feel more relevant to someone. And they couldn't even do that. So I'm like, well, ultimately, like, I just don't have enough control here to like really make a difference in your quality scores and raising that.
And you'll hear us talk about this like throughout this entire video series. A good website is going to be like the cornerstone for all your digital marketing stuff. Like whatever you do, you're always going to end up driving them back to that website. So you want to make sure that it's good and that it really represents you and like your company and your product. Courtney, I know you mentioned that there's different placements for Google Ads. So I know like there's 3 at the top. I think there's even 3 or 4 at the bottom. You get to bid for position, right? Ish?
You used to.
Used to, not
or
anymore.
you really can if you want. I don't necessarily. There's not a lot of correlation between. Yes, you certainly get more clicks if you're the first result, but that doesn't necessarily lead to more conversions.
I know Adam prefers the second slot because it's usually a good amount cheaper and you get clicked a similar amount of times on average.
Yeah. So, back in the day, Google Ads was like very like it was like an auction. You would go in and sometimes people would go in daily and say like, this is how much I'm willing to pay for this keyword. And you would have to set that for every single keyword. And that was it. Like if someone outbid you, then like it's going to tell you, but you're going to have to then raise your budget. So now Google, they've like massively grown out their algorithm. It's like super robust.
It might be the biggest algorithm of all the algorithms.
It's a beast. So now there's options for what they call like automated bid strategies, which you pick the goal of your campaign. So if you want to be at the top of Google every time, you can do that. You can do one by search impression share. So you can say, I want to be on the first page. I want to be at the top. So that would put you in the top 3 or 4 slots. And then I want to be at the absolute top. And it's going to take your budget and spend accordingly so that you meet that goal. And that'll certainly get you more clicks if that's what you're interested in. But I've never seen that actually lead to more leads. And that's what a lot of clients they want to see a lot of clicks, and that's what they expect to see. But I'm like, if it's not giving you any leads, then it doesn't matter.
If you get 1,000 clicks and 2 customers versus 100 clicks and 2 customers, you just saved money.
Yeah. And so that's where, kind of changing that mentality is important to understand now that like, we're using a lot more data about a specific user on Google to show them an ad. It's not just, so random. Like someone could be searching for your keyword and they're not going to see your ad because Google has determined that person, for whatever reason, is not a good converter. So they're not even going to show that person your ad. They're not going to waste your time or your money. So that's a kind of a big distinction to get. It still is a bidding system based on your budget, but Google's taking it and taking everyone else's budget and their goals, and that's how they kind of sort them against each other to figure out where does a ad need to be placed on a page.
Interesting. So I know we've talked a lot about Google Ad specifically like through search. What are the other types of ads available on the Google Ad network?
So you can run what's called the Google search ads, which is found on Google search pages. You can run Gmail campaigns. So those are actually ads found at the top. They're search ads still, but they're like similarly set up, but they're specifically run in Gmail. There's the Google Display Network. So that's going to be, you give Google display ads. You should probably run like 6. I would run the top 3 mobile ad sizes and the top 3 desktop sizes. And some of those overlap. So give it 6 ads per ad group, and you tell Google basically, there's a lot of different ways to show your display ads. You could do it based on keywords that people actually search in Google, and then that in turn turns into what they see on their display network.
Interesting.
You could do it based on their demographics, so location, age, income, gender, and you could show it to people that way. You could also do like their interests. So you could say, if you're selling yoga pants, you're going to want to find people who Google has already like contextually determined through all of their activity on Google that they're into yoga, they're into fitness, that kind of thing. And they'll show it to those people. You can also give it websites. So you can say if someone's been to, for example, IXL is a client we have that makes a sports drink. So one of their display campaigns runs on people who've been to Vitamin Water, Gatorade, Powerade websites.
Because that's like the right type of client.
Yeah, and OPCC, they'll run ones on, people who've been to Bartle Hall's page or different convention centers pages to say, hey, like we're a convention center too.
So check us out.
Check us out. So there's a lot of possibilities within that. And you can run display ads in just a flat image, or you could run GIFs. Mm-hmm. So GIF is a good option to kind of capture like movement. It kind of captures the eyes a little better. You can also do responsive display ads. So responsive search ads are kind of what they sound like. You give Google like a list of headlines. You have to give it at least 6. But I like to give it a lot more than that. So you give it all of these like different headlines for your ads, and then you give it 4 different descriptions for an ad. And Google puts together the combinations that best convert. So same thing with the display, responsive display ads. You give it a bunch of like lifestyle imagery of your product or your service. And you also give it a logo. Mm-hmm. And you upload like, I think it's like 4 descriptions, 2 long descriptions, and then like 4 like regular descriptions. And Google then puts all of those together, the combinations of like logo, lifestyle image, and wording that will be most likely to get the clicks.
Interesting.
There's what's called smart display. So that this is complicated, and yeah, like don't worry if it's a lot. Like
it is a lot.
It takes a long time to understand it all. So there's smart display campaigns in which you like give Google the images and it does it for you. It does everything. It runs it for it picks everything for you.
Are they well-ran campaigns?
They get a lot of impressions. I think that's where those come in handy. There is an option that they have been beta testing with smart display campaigns. So you have to qualify by having 100 conversions in a month or more, which we have a few clients that do that. So I've run these for them. You pay per conversion, which is like kind of crazy. Like you give Google like what you're willing to pay for a conversion, and that's the only time you pay is when someone converts. So people can click and see your ad all they want, but until someone fills out a form or calls you, you don't have to pay for it.
That's awesome.
So obviously if you get a ton of conversions, that could get a little expensive, but like that's not likely to happen. So that's another one that's like heavily automated, if you trust Google, which I don't think there's any reason not to trust the algorithm. I've never seen one at least. So it's a good option to run too. Can run video ads on YouTube.
Yeah. Love YouTube.
Yeah, and those play before videos to people who decided that their ads could be showing or their videos could show ads. Sometimes those people make money off of it, same as anyone who provides a slot in the Google Display Network. They're like a Google, I don't remember what it's called, like a merchant or something. So they get a cut of the advertising, like of your budget basically on the click. You can make them skippable. You can make them not skippable. I think YouTube ads are really like,
they are. Not
a lot of people understand the value of them, but we've seen a lot of conversions. Physical therapy client has seen a lot of conversions from it. It's really underrated. So
it's just all like also, I mean, it's probably not surprising. It's a lot easier to get a message through with like 5 to 15 to 20 seconds of video.
Yeah, and it's FaceTime, like seeing a person.
Than it is on like just text ad or banner ad. Mm-hmm. And I think it also sometimes looks a lot more professional. Mm-hmm. Like if you're running YouTube ads, people just think you're big time. Like we've a whole bunch of clients who do it, and like they're smaller here in KC, but they'll get clients like, oh my God, I saw you on YouTube. Like that's so crazy. How do you do that?
Oh, the funniest thing that happened one day, Adam's dad called him and was like, congratulations. And Adam's like, what? And he's like, you're in the Times, like the New York Times. And Adam's like, what are you talking about? Like, I was like getting all excited. I'm like, oh my God, they wrote about us. Like,
we're about to blow up. Yeah.
Like, can't wait to talk about it. And like, he meant he saw our ad from the Google Display Network on
the New York Times website.
But he thought we were like on the New York Times, which like,
it's really common.
I mean, yeah. And so like people see that, they like kind of equate that with you.
Yeah. I think the other big one that is remarketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's kind of something everyone's interested in, even if they're annoyed by it. Some clients will come to us and be like, I'm seeing your ad. I remember Adam and I were at a chamber event, and this woman walks up to us really aggressively, and she's like, Adam, what are you doing? You're following me around, and I see your ad everywhere, and I don't want to, and all this stuff. She gets to the end of her little rant, and she's like, but you have to show me how to do it. She's like, I want to do it. Are you going to teach me? So remarketing, for those that don't know, it's a form of following people around, essentially.
The best example I always give clients is if you're on Amazon and you look at a pair of boots, and then the boots follow you around for what feels like the rest of your life, or until you clear your cash. That's remarketing.
Amazon has its own network or advertising platform.
That doesn't surprise me.
So I think they do a lot.
That's that third company who just runs the world. But yeah, so obviously clients want to show up for people who have already been to their site.
Yeah. And you already that's as warm a lead as you can get on the internet. Someone's already kind of interested. So you can set up remarketing based on if a user has just come to your site. You can do it for people who spent more than 30 seconds on your site. You can do it for people who came to a specific page. You could do it for someone who took a specific action. So Leasing KC, for example, they have a page on their website because they're not only looking for people who want to rent apartments and homes, they're also looking for people to rent their apartments and homes on the site, to put them up for people. So if someone makes it to that page, they're going to trigger remarketing, which is essentially installs a cookie on your browser, which has started to cause there's a little Apple caveat to this that we'll get into in a second. But it installs a cookie on your browser, and it then follows you around. So each time you're on a website that also runs on the Google Display Network, they're going to probably see your ad. Another popular one is with real estate. Real estate agents use it a lot for houses. They'll say have you changed your mind? Take a look again. Maybe this house has dropped in price, whatever it is.
We had a client, and this was a really, really interesting way to use it. She ran a Pilates studio, and she had people sign up for a 30-day challenge. And on the 30-day challenge, she would follow them around if they'd been to the 30-day challenge link and paid and all this stuff. And she would send encouraging messages. So she'd be like, hey, you can do it. Keep going. Tina. Or hey, just another day. And you only pay if people click on them.
Yeah.
For the most part. And so it was a really cool way to not really spend money, but still make your clients feel special and encourage them and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The max amount of time you can actually use a cookie for is 30 days. Mm-hmm. That's just some legal things and privacy issues and whatever. So 30 days. People, though, however, who are in the health services market, so there's a lot of HIPAA rules on this, may not be eligible to run Google Ads. You'll know when you try to set up a retargeting audience in your Google Ads account. It will say can't do due to a
speculative medical treatments?
No, it'll say can't do due to a policy violation, which is you can't target an ad to someone based on personal health attributes.
Interesting.
So I can't remarket to someone who I know has cancer. You can't keep following them around with ads.
It always makes me happy when Google goes all moral high ground.
That's a huge HIPAA violation. So a lot of those clients that want to run remarketing, unfortunately, we can't do it on Google, but you can certainly do it on other platforms.
Bing has no such moral high ground.
Facebook has a really easy way to run retargeting. Amazon, obviously. Yeah. So there are some caveats. And then, so now Google or Apple recently released an update that Safari purges all cookies within 7 days.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they kind of threw a little wrench into that. Anyone who uses Safari to browse, which I don't on my Mac computer, but on my iPhone I certainly do. Because why would I download another browser?
Because it's better.
Meh. I don't think it makes any difference on a phone, personally.
It's a hot take.
So I use my Safari. Yeah. So those cookies are expiring within 7 days now. Google also announced that starting in 2021, I believe, they will no longer be supporting third-party cookies in Google Chrome. So Google Chrome is 75% of
Yeah, the largest browser.
Yeah, like, I mean, the only good reason to use Edge is to download Chrome, I always say. So so think about that. They're not going to be, so the only way you can retarget someone who's using Chrome coming up is going to be through Google remarketing.
Surprised it took them that long.
I know. So that's going to make, some challenges coming up. But I think it'll be interesting to see how people adapt.
For sure. I guess with that many different types of options in the Google Ad Network, how do you pick which one's best for your business?
So if you want immediate if you have a short buying cycle, you're going to want to run search ads. And that's just going to be like, you can also run, I would put most of the budget towards search ads. I certainly wouldn't say only. You could also be running, some of those awareness campaigns on display. If you have a new product that no one knows about yet, you're going to want to run a combo of like search ads, not branded. You're going to want to run ones based on that product's attributes, certain things people might be looking for. And then you're going to want to set up a display campaign that runs based on your competitors, like people who are looking at this product are also going to be certainly like our product is a better option for them. So we're going to run an ad based on that on the display network. We could also do it on YouTube. If you're coming out with a new beauty product, you may want to put an ad on some beauty influencer channels on YouTube because those people get, millions and millions of hits. So you're going to want to put it on there, and there are people who are interested in makeup and beauty. I would also make the argument that you should, especially if you're e-commerce, it's a lot easier to tell. Like, it's kind of hard to tell all the time if someone doesn't convert because a display ad, you could click on it, but also some people might see your display ad and then go to their browser and like type in the website, or they may search your name and then go organically. So it's going to count as an organic traffic ultimately if they convert, but like they actually did come to you through a display ad. So a good way to also capture people is to you have to set this up kind of in code, but your website provider, your advertiser should be able to help you with this. So you make it a rule that if someone came to your website and they didn't buy, or if they added to cart but didn't purchase, you can advertise based on that specifically. So you could kind of do that, product ad, like, did you change your mind? Or like, hey, keep thinking about this. Or, these are those pairs of shoes you were eyeing but you never bought. Do you want to come back and buy them? So it all is kind of like how it works together. It just takes, honestly, it's a lot of common sense. Like just thinking about what your product or service is and how someone would approach choosing your business.
Are there any new Google ad formats that people should know about?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on some of these. Responsive ads are certainly a thing that they're pushing hard right now. It's in fact like now best practice in a search ad campaign to have two what are called expanded text ads. So those are just like your standard text ad with like extensions and things like that. So you can have site extensions, you can have call links, you could have like a little map. That's just like a standard ad these days. And then there's what's called responsive search ads. So I talked about that. Finding, you give Google a bunch of headlines and you give Google a bunch of descriptions and they create all the combinations for you. So then they're also rolling out, obviously, the smart campaigns, the smart display. Those are really taking off. And the responsive display, which is a really easy way. I like it because it makes like the display network so much more accessible. I have a lot of clients who I know would be successful on the display network, but they don't have the budget for us to, have it go through design and that whole process. Yeah. So like, I'm like, well, we took really good photos for your website. We have your logo already.
Just throw them on.
We can just put all those together and give it some copy and like you have a display campaign now. Whereas you wouldn't have otherwise, which I think is really nice of them to do.
Yeah. What is your either favorite thing or what's one thing that you wish everyone to take away from this video series podcast about the Google Ad Network?
That it's always changing. Like what you think one day is the best could be something completely different the next time you approach it. You know, I have clients who used to manage their ads and they come to us for it for a while and they're like, could we like take it back over? And we let them. And because, I mean, we're certainly not like.
We're not hoarding it.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know, here it is.
Yeah.
Good luck. And they kind of get in there and realize like, oh shit. If it's been more than 6 months, like you're going to have to almost start over.
You're going to have to be in there regularly, not just like adjusting things, but learning about what's new.
And I have a Google alert set up for any time there's new news about Google ads. Like obviously during the COVID thing, it was like not the most relevant like updates to the network, but you're going to want to keep in on what's going on. If you're a big like agency or you have a manager account, you get access to the Google Ads specialists. So they're people whose whole job is to like literally help you use Google better.
That's awesome.
So like, you know, I talk to ours every other week and she's telling me, you know, this is the new thing we're trying. This is the new thing we're beta testing. Let me help you get your clients into it. You know, we have these ad credits. Let me help you figure out which clients qualify. So like, I feel like I have a lot more resources to kind of know what's happening. So if you're not
tapped into that.
You don't want to stay tapped in if you don't want to read news like literally daily. It's best for you to just keep on having someone manage it because it's not as easy. It's not just setting it up and then walking away forever. It's a constant kind of thing.
It's always evolving.
Yeah, it's like a living being.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, guys, that's all we have for today. You guys today. Thank you, Courtney, for joining me on this episode of Ask Lifted Logic. If you have any other questions, digital marketing related, feel free to hashtag AskLL, and we'll get to them as soon as we can.
Keep them coming.
Bam! Feel free to hashtag AskLL on social media, and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. But keep in mind, there are no stupid questions, especially in the digital space.